Shalom, brothers and sisters, warriors of Yahuah and warriors of the truth. I am going to share some more from Fossilized Customs today. And Bella Beanie's with us. Okay. I gotta find where I was. Okay, here I am. Okay. The Magi, the Wise Ones, BABEL'S, MYSTAGOGUES. Magi was the term used for the pagan priests of Mithras, and they were magicians who used fire and eagles as representations of their deities, just like the White House symbol has the eagle in the middle, and on our money. Those who led the initiate into the mysteries were called mystagogues. Ancient pagans gave us the worship of fire, religious discs, halos or circles, wreaths, boughs, branches, domes with an oculus in the top, bells, towers, steeples, candle altars in front of statues, holy water wearing black, indoor altars shaped like a flat autopsy table. The idea of dead people's bones being a relic that contains powers. Tea leaves or scapulas. I've seen in plenty of TV shows and movies people trying to read tea leaves, or that's another pagan tradition. The dates of Easter or Ishtar and Christmas or Saturnalia being exactly the same. Easter being the authentic name for the pagan event itself. Sunday, Lent or Lenten, Valentine's Day, Halloween, Father's Day, Mother's Day, the ring in marriage, rolling eggs on the grass, or fields, monks, prayer beads like the Buddhist monks used, also inherited by a separate path to the pagan Arabs before they converted to Islam. Princes on flying carpets and flying Santas, gurus, popes, fathers, ASHERAH poles, obelisks, colossus images of dead men, crosses of candles. It sounds like some wild voodoo, doesn't it? It sure does. That's exactly what it is. Let's see if we can establish a difference between the relative advantage of having the Santa myth in our lives or spinning a dead chicken by its neck over our heads. You go first. Although, all right. For which of the two gains you the greater advantages? If you're truthful with yourself, they gain you the very same results, nothing. In the here and now, as well as in the eternal perspective, keep your eye on the Torah and you'll see it is turning out to be a better foundation than any other structure around. Names, beliefs, customs, and teachings all dissolve as shifting sand on the beach of history. But the Torah stands like a rock and is never changing. There's nothing evil hiding under the Torah. It simply teaches us how to love. Magi, who visited the young Mashiach Yahusha, came when he was about 2 years old, not the night of his birth. They spoke to Herod first, and he carefully examined them to learn exactly when the star had appeared. The Magi were probably Mandaeans, or Mandeans, sun worshippers, and were watching for this star because they were descendants of the Babylonians, who had preserved copies of Daniel's writings, and probably other prophets as well. The reason the Magi paid close attention was because Daniel was quite a famous and important figure among the Babylonian wise men, and his interpretation of Nebuchadnezzar's dream. Let me see here. Had saved the lives of all their ancestors, Nebuchadnezzar's dream. They were what we would call wizards and may have been keepers of the flame, the sacred fire. And we also see the word wizards used in the KKK. They still use the word wizard to speaking to each other. Or speaking of each other. They were what we would call wizards and yes, the sacred fire. Remember that these men were also the primary reason the clergy wears black today. They played with ashes a lot of the time. They were mumblers who interpreted the mysteries. No doubt Nostradamus had a lot in common with them. He gazed into a fire when writing his quatrains. They engaged in magic. This logically led to the medieval attempt to transmutate metals like iron into gold. The gifts these Magi's brought were gold, a gift for a king, frankincense, a gift for a priest, and myrrh, a burial ointment used to glue the wrappings of the body. But these costly gifts also provided for the flight and stay in Egypt, since Yusuf, Miriam, and the Prince of Peace left that very night, being warned by Gabriel of Herod's design to kill the child. Any child can show you which day is the 7th day of the week on a calendar. Saturday. How is it that we adults find it so difficult to rest on the proper day? To celebrate Shabbat on the proper day. Many Christians don't know. They think that it's Sunday and they stay oblivious and they stay in the clouds. Let me see here. At Luke 18:17, Yahushua said, "Whoever does not receive the kingdom of Yahuah like a child shall not enter it." We all read scripture to find deeper meanings and glean the pure thoughts of the one who inspired it. There are false teachers guiding people away from the truth as well, misleading them into greater darkness. In one of these, the study of Kabbalism, there are 4 levels of meaning. This puffed up teaching is like leavening expands bread. Kabbalah is about yoking with forces, just as a guru teaches his adherents to pursue through yoga. We are warned to beware of the leavening, inflated teachings of the scribes and Pharisees. These men and others like Kabbalists interpreted Torah on these 4 levels. Pashat, the literal meaning of the words. Remez, the simple secondary meaning. Drash, an exotic derivative going out on a limb, straining the meaning severely. And Sud, let's hope we aren't responsible for this interpretation level. Anyway, we strain to see past what Torah literally says. This might cause us to overlook it. Straining out a gnat, we could swallow a camel as we drink the milk of Torah. Or we could find that as we correct another on a small detail, we have overlooked a huge log in our own ability to see with clarity what Torah says. Yahusha's remark must have sounded insulting to the puffed-up rabbis, exalted ones. The Pharisees' Kabbalism have leavened or puffed up their self-image and added much. Yahusha was clearly saying that a child was superior to them in comprehension. Many traditions in Rabbinic Judaism and Catholicism originate in Buddhism. Catholic nun, Buddhist nun, and the pictures are here. Nimrod still rules, resident of the United States, or Vice President of the United States, sorry, and it shows the symbol. It's the eagle symbol, so it's still the symbol for Nimrod. So it's showing that basically we're still living under the rule of Nimrod, no matter what face they put in front of it. Whatever presidential face they put in front of it, it's still Nimrod. Nimrod stuff and Santa Moloch. We've heard all the nice stuff, but what entanglements do we have with a man who supposedly flies horned beasts through the air at night? Is it about sorcery? He wears a wizard cap. The red costume is recent, but it's the ancient color of fire. It's our cultural color for danger. Also, red is a color that makes animals like go nuts. You don't want to have red when you have a dog, or you don't want to have them wear red. The costume is trimmed in sheepskin. He descends into a fire pit at midnight. The hearth is directly linked to the idolatry of the Romans. The fire was sacred to them, and its place was the center of the pagan worship of their deities. Our mythology of him comes to us through Angleland or England, and that traces to Holland and Germany and back to Turkey. One version involves a 3rd century story about a Saint Nicholas. It has no mention of elves, chimneys, flying reindeer, or supernatural feats. The Christmas tree isn't even mentioned in the story. Christianity has made no inroads into the northern areas of Angleland, Holland, Scotland, Finland, and Ireland until well into the 5th century. If anyone named Nicholas existed in Holland during the 3rd century, he was a pagan who obeyed his druid priests. In the 8th century, a man named Boniface encountered these druid-led people of the north and sought to convert them. He saw them bringing oak trees into their homes at the winter solstice, decorating them with gold balls representing testicles. Note picture on page 3. We can go back to page 3. I'm not finding it. No. I'm sorry, guys. I will continue on. The word druid means oak-wise, because oak trees were sacred to them. This comes from Babylon. At the death of Nimrod, the wife or mother Semiramis, or the wife and mother Semiramis, because she was both to Nimrod, taught the young Tammuz to go into the groves, Asherim or forest, and place a gift on a tree at the winter solstice. This was an offering to his father, Nimrod, who was now the sun. The custom of tying a yellow ribbon around an oak tree represents a prayer to the sun. The oak tree was sacred to Odin. Branches of trees symbolize Nimrod to them, so decorating pagan temples and homes with holly, boughs, and wreaths was the custom. The wreaths are branches twisted into circles, so the branches would be associated with childbirth, representations of a womb and birth canal. Remember, it is the nativity of the sun they celebrated. Ezekiel 8:14 through 18 shows how the women in Jerusalem were weeping for Tammuz, and the Levite priests, 25 men, were facing the rising sun and putting a branch to their nose. These customs were called a detestable thing. Do not learn the ways of the Gentiles, and do not be terrified by the signs or zodiac of the skies. Although the Gentiles are terrified by them, for the customs of the Gentiles are delusion, they cut a tree from the forest, the work of a cutting tool. They decorate it with silver and gold, then fasten it with nails and with hammers. Yirmiyahu 10:2 through 4. The Benedictine monk Boniface influenced the Druids in 722 CE to adopt a slight variation on the ASHERAH tree. When Boniface saw the people of the Druids bring oak trees into their homes, he diverted them to consider the evergreen instead, the evergreen tree, and used it to teach them about eternal life. He never taught them that the tree or the wreath was a detestable, disgusting thing, set apart for destruction, along with anyone who would bring it into their home. Deuteronomy 7:26. People of other regions use date palms. Scholars call it syncretism when a religious or philosophical behavior is united or combined with another behavior. It is an attempt to disguise one of them in the camouflage of the other by reinventing a new meaning and passing it on to another culture. Teaching the children will ensure it will pass on to the next generation and the next, and so on. Because the behavior is cyclical and associated with the warmth and love of the family bond. The satanic scheme quickly adheres to the fabric of a culture and stays there. To question or abandon pagan behavior is akin to rejecting one's family. From their perspective, rejecting traditions appears to be unloving and taken very personally. And I can vouch for that myself. I when I was actually still speaking to my mother, I was trying to explain to her everything I learned and how she shouldn't get a Christmas tree, and she still got one anyways, and she just still did the gifts like she always does. And she wouldn't listen to me. She heard what I said, but she just it's so programmed into her mind that she won't stop, no matter what it means, and it's sad. The scheme is insidious and very difficult to come out of because the bonds of family are entwined into the tradition so tightly. Those who want to continue in the traditions feel they have been betrayed and their loved one has fallen into a cult. In truth, the traditions are the culture that has ensnared them in it, and the one who escaped has been set free by the truth. Beastly behavior. All these I shall give you if you fall down and worship me. And it shows a picture of Satan claws. These are the 3 depictions. The beastly image, Satan claws right there, and this is Baal, the one that they sacrificed children to, the deity. Moloch is lurking nearby at Christmas. In truth, he is Santa Claus. The Christmas tree, whether an oak, evergreen, or palm, points back to Isabel's Baal and Asherah rebellion, the witchcraft of Babel. It was in the original garden that we first find that trees are involved in determining whether mankind would sin or not. Shaitan, or Satan, is a usurper, a liar, and imitates closely many things. Imitation is the highest form of flattery. Shaitan, or Satan, is still using trees to whisper lies to us. When we go out to stores at the end of the Roman year, we often walk by many of these displays, knowing the trees are ASHERAH and the wreaths are fertility symbols or female genitalia. We'll cover more details about the Christmas tree and wreath customs shortly. If there really was a real person named Nicholas, and it's not all just a legend, he sure went through some changes. The oldest account of his existence is vague and of relatively recent origin. His location places him among the Germanic Dutch. But as I mentioned, these people were not yet Christians. The date and location for him makes it an anachronism. The time is against it being true. The time is against it being true. In the 3rd century, the people of the north were barbarians, meaning bearded Aryans, or bearded white folk. They were druids who burned their enemies and criminals in wicker cages over fires. They threw wealth into lakes to water idols, like we still see people do in fountains. Yeah, that reminds me, when I was a kid, I used to throw pennies in wishing wells or fountains, and that's pagan, and I didn't know it at the time. And my grandparents didn't know it, or they wouldn't have had me doing it. They were druids who burned their enemies and criminals in wicker cages over fires, threw wealth into lakes to their water idols, like we still see people do in fountains. Sorry, I reread that part. Burned children as offerings to the sun, and placed jack-o'-lanterns outside their homes lit by candles made from the fat of their own children. That's disgusting, guys. If they weren't pagans, nobody was. The legendary Nicholas couldn't have been there at that time. Another major problem is this. They claim Nicholas was a bishop, presbyter, elder. Yet at his death on December 6th, he had only reached the ripe old age of 17. Bishop means elder, from the Greek word prebus, or prebis, old man. The tale contains many conflicting facts. The RC honors him as a saint, or a saint. How did we get from Nicholas to Santa Claus? In the late Middle Ages, the Germanic Dutch who told the story of Nicholas to English listeners spoke in a very pronounced accent when they said Saint Nicholas. It sounded like this: Saint Nicholas. Saint Nicholas. The English heard it as Santa Claus. And the Spanish form Santa simply means saint. You will sometimes see the form Santi in old books from earlier in the 20th century. Okay, the next section is Irish Potato Blight. The Irish of Ireland, had grown very dependent upon the potato during the 18th and 19th centuries. The potato was a transplant to Ireland from Colombia, South America. In 1846, a fungus destroyed the crops, causing widespread famine in Ireland. Vast numbers of people died, and the decline of the population was catastrophic. So much so that the only hope of escape from death was emigration. It was precisely at this point that most Irish came to the United States, fleeing the Great Famine. What they brought to the United States for the first time was Catholicism, since many of the early coloners had fled here from the religious persecution of Catholic and Anglican intolerance. These Irish Catholics had the rich cultural background of Druidism, which they had blended together with Roman Catholicism. Their belief in elves, banshees, leprechauns, fairies, luck, and all sorts of Celtic magic came with them. They brought their pumpkin rituals, seen as Halloween, which had been a Druid festival honoring Samhain, their deity of the dead. They also brought their Christmas tree tradition along with Christmas, which had been outlawed as pagan in many colonies. The Catholics in South America have assimilated the cultural background of the Aztecs. Other Catholics from around the world would not recognize many things that they do, and so it is with them in many other parts of the world. Whatever the indigenous pagans were doing before became intermixed with the Roman Catholic order of things, camouflaging the paganism. The Haitian voodoo of Cajun Catholics mixed pagan and Catholic traditions down in Louisiana, where the alligators grow so mean. There were no pumpkins on porches or Christmas trees in America until the potato fungus drove the Irish people to flee their homeland and migrate to North America. Things like paganism go better with Coke. In the late 1800s, a pharmacist put some cocaine in a sweetened bubbling cola beverage and named it Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola was invented by Dr. John Pemberton, an Atlanta pharmacist. By the 1930s, it was a major business and had its own advertising department, strategists, and artists. One of the Coca-Cola advertising managers, Sundblom, decided to attempt something new. The Dutch or Irish character called Santa Claus was beginning to get a lot of attention. So he set his mind on aligning the Coca-Cola product with him. So Santa Claus that they push on our children, even in school they push it very hard every holiday. So you're telling me here that Santa Claus is connected to a cocaine soda. That's insanity to me. Like, come on, guys. This is all truth, but like when you first hear it, it sounds crazy, yes, but it's all truth. And I want to share it with as much people as I can. My mouth hurts today. It's been hurting for a few days, but it's gotten worse. I'm trying to read as much as I can to you guys before I have to get off. But I'm going to continue here. The original character was an Irish transplant. Or wait a minute. Okay. Santa Claus didn't look like he does now. The original character was an Irish transplant coming from people who had based their beliefs on Druid magic and elves. The 19th century poem, The Night Before Christmas, had catapulted our elf into the spotlight because the character was so appealing. Sundblom used his imagination to change Santa Claus into what we think he looks like today. Before, Santa was 2 feet tall, skinny, and wore green. He had a long white beard, and for all practical purposes, he was a leprechaun or elf creature with magical powers to grant wishes, watch you without being seen, and so on. And in Lithuania, where one of my favorite streamers lives, their Santa is in a blue suit, which I thought was kind of strange. He could also do you harm. The alignment with the hearth is another pagan syncretism, right down to the stockings hung by the chimney with care. To make this night visitor charming and more human, Sundblom made him a full-size man, jolly and plump, to better assume the distinctive shape of the Coke bottle. He also used the appealing red and white product colors to clothe Santa in. The drooping wizard hat was a must. The final artwork was combined with a marketing message to encourage customers to leave a bottle of Coke near the hearth when he visits at midnight or Christmas Eve. Now you know why little children say, "But how can Santa fit down our chimney? Isn't he too big?" He's big now, but they also tell the children that Santa has magical powers. When he was less than 2 feet tall, he could fit into many such tight squeezes. Telling an outright lie to your children has an effect on them later in life. It harms their faith in the truth. It perpetuates the lie for generations down the line and cripples them for life regarding believing in things they cannot see, such as an unseen creator. Like, they ruin it for children before they can even learn about Yahuah. I didn't learn about Yah until 5 years ago. Let me see here. Lying to them about Santa certainly isn't going to help them believe who is the father of lies. Tradition is a powerful stronghold. If you put up a tree, hang stockings by the fireplace, and exchange gifts this coming Roman December, watch for the mistletoe. It's poisonous, and a pagan spell surrounds its ritual use too. It is just a parasite to a tree, but the custom of hanging it up and collecting kisses comes from Druidism. The name Saint Nicholas may coincidentally relate to Revelations 2:15 and the reference to Nicolaitans. The messenger to the assembly at Pergamum was to carry a warning about the teachings of Balaam that they embraced. Likewise, you will also have those who hold to the teachings of the Nicolaitans. Repent, therefore. It has been said that these were a sect of religious teachers who lorded over the laity, which is what Nicolaitan means. I smell Nimrod all over this, don't you? I don't get the impression that Yahusha likes us to mix up our worship of him with pagan designs or wants us to have any contact with it. Light and darkness cannot mix. Now let's consider how the Christmas tree is mixed up in all of this. ASHERAH, this is the next section. ASHERAH, the Christmas tree connection. BAAL and ASHERAH, the Sun King and his consort. ASHERAH is known in Scripture as the Queen of Heaven and is called Artemis by the Ephesians in the book of Acts chapter 19. The word ASHERAH is found at least 40 times in the Tanakh and refers to a wooden object used in the worship of a consort of Baal. The image of ASHERAH was a tree used by the pagan Canaanites and the Sidonians. One of these pagan Sidonians was Isabel, who married Ahab, king of northern Yasharal, Samaritan king. Northern Yasharal was in apostasy, being led into rebellion by their leadership and violated the covenant of Yahuah. They added an 11th commandment when there's only supposed to be 10. You shall worship Yahuah your Elohim in Mount Gerizim, or Gerizim. Note how this is one of the topics of the conversation between Yahusha and the Samaritan women at the well at John 4. The northern tribes began to worship the BALE'S, or Baalim, consisting of Baal and Asherah, influenced by King Ahab's Sidonian wife Isabel. Yahusha mentions Isabel's teachings at Revelation 2, and he's not happy. Such tree worship was put under the ban, yet the 10 northern tribes failed to carefully guard Yahuah's commandments or declarations. Asherah became the deal breaker, and the northern tribes were taken away into the nations. They remain so now after 2,700 plus years. When northern Yasharal was dispersed into the nations by the Assyrians in 722 BCE, they carried this tree custom with them. The lost tribes of dispersed Yasharal have preserved one of their most cherished pagan customs among them, the Christmas tree, or ASHERAH. Hold on, guys, sorry. Sorry, it's my husband. Okay. Alright, I apologize, guys. I had to answer my husband. He's shopping for us. Okay. You shall worship Yahuah your Elohim. Okay, I read that part. I apologize. Yahusha mentions Isabel's teachings at Revelation 2, and he is not happy. I read all that. I'm sorry. When northern Yasharal was dispersed into the nations by the Assyrians in 722 BCE, they carried this tree custom with them. The lost tribes of dispersed Yasharal have preserved one of their most cherished pagan customs among them, the Christmas tree or Asherah. If you were brought up with this custom, then you are most likely descended from these northern tribes, even if only doctrinally. You were taught to practice an ancient pagan form of idolatry and never knew it. Asherah was the queen of heaven. See Jeremiah chapters 7 and 44. Now read how the Creator feels about such behavior. Deuteronomy 7:26. Do not bring a detestable thing into your house, or you, like it, will be set apart for destruction. You will be thrown into the pit. Utterly abhor and detest it, for it is set apart for destruction. You're not supposed to bring a tree into your house. These traditions have got everyone mind warped. Yahuah warned Yasharal to not erect an Asherah next to his altar, nor bring a detestable thing into our house. Even though we may not remember what it represented long ago, Yahuah hasn't forgotten at all. He does not change or forget the origins of behavior. The Asherah is a deal breaker with Yahuah. He won't stand for it. He dispersed the northern tribes of Yasharal into the nations, and they have lived as pagans for 2,700 plus years. They left Yahuah's covenant, but they have held fast to the Asherim, plural of Asherah. Asher is a Hebrew term meaning happy, and is a word used as a proper noun. The father of the tribe of Asher, Aleph Shin Resh. This term was modified and became the word Asherah, a proper name used by pagans for the female consort of Baal, Celtic Bel. Baal or Asherah worship is clearly seen during the time of Al-Yahu, when 450 prophets of Baal and 400 prophets of Asherah assembled at Mount Carmel, and Al-Yahu challenged them to decide whether Yahuah is Elohim or Baal, and his consort Asherah. And the next section is, what or who is Asherah? I'm trying to fit, okay. The adversary misled mankind with various fertility rites and receives worship through these rites. Yahuah doesn't provide us with the details of the heathen rites, but we know generally from scripture they perform their rituals in forests or groves, like the Bohemian Grove. The word ASHERAH is translated as groves in the KJV. Yahuah mentions how the Yashreelites would bring ASHERAH and put them near his Hekal or temple, behavior which we see inherited as the Christmas tree. The trees most likely used were date palms. Modern witchcraft and Shatanism or Satanism is generally in general follows most closely to the worship of ASHERAH. The name is most likely directly related to Ishtar and Artemis, worshipped by modern-day witches, as well as the ancient Ephesians, Acts 19:28. Stumps of trees found in groves were also used as the altars of ASHERAH, which may be directly related to the fallen Nimrod cut down by Shem, as tradition informs us. Yahuah has not warned his people to study this demonic worship, yet it persists today. He has not wanted his people to study this demonic worship. The most insidious part is right out in the open and not occult, hidden at all. The Christmas tree object. A more secretive side is also growing in popularity. In fact, it is the most popular fad among teens and young adults today. The reason it is not very easy to learn about is mostly because it is occult or hidden. It has been so since the patterns of worshiping the adversary went underground after the execution of Nimrod. They had once practiced their rebellion openly, but then withheld into secrecy to hide their worship behind symbolism, which could only be interpreted correctly by those initiated in the occult, or the Illuminati. One dominant pattern found in occultic behavior is the matrilinear or mother goddess ideal. Rebellion against Yahuah is accentuated by this matrilinear focus as opposed to the matrilinear, so we see the moon being used to represent the female astrology. Although the original concept of ASHERAH worship has remained hidden from the general public, I feel that the acceptance of the solstice tree is drawn directly from the pagan worship, transformed for public consumption. The ASHERAH were considered altars in themselves, also, where animals and humans were ritually sacrificed at the equinoxes and solstices. This altar could take form of a tree stump with the trunk snapped off, leaving jagged spike-like splinters. The Christmas tree phenomena is also a type of altar where gifts and offerings are placed. That makes a lot of sense. Easter is a word derived from Ishtar, Ashtoreth, and Astarte. Tree worship is the most prominent feature, however, the serpent gets involved also. It seems that the adversary has the tree and the serpent seared into its mind indelibly. A serpent around a stump is one of the symbols we find used in ancient pagan religions. The tree of life, Etz HaShaim, and the tree of knowledge of good and evil may be the sources this fallen being is borrowing from in the design of the false worship. But we know it is forbidden to worship Yahuah in any false or perverted manner. Rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft, and we certainly know that any involvement with ASHERAH is witchcraft. Some have even suggested that the symbol of the cross may have been a style of Asherah pole used by certain pagans, and that it was brought into the mixed worship of Christianity. Some styles of ASHERAH have crux-like and Ankh-like shapes, Certainly the Christmas tree is considered a Christian symbol, yet the common culture has no idea how it actually relates to anything associated with Yahuah or Santa Claus for that matter. No one can explain what the Christmas tree has to do with Santa Claus either. It's all developed very rapidly in Western culture. It's like a Cajun gumbo, where every possible pagan item has been thrown together into a big stinky stew or cup of abominations. The harlot teaches them to her subjects, keeping them in a drunken stupor by making them all drink from her cup every week on Sunday. Light and darkness are discussed at Ephesians 5:5-14. For of this you can be sure, no immoral, impure, or greedy person, such a man is an idolater, has any inheritance in the kingdom of Mashiach or Messiah and of Elohim, Yahuah. Let no one deceive you with empty words, for because of such things Elohim's wrath comes on those who are disobedient. Therefore do not be partners with them, for you were once darkness, but now you are light in the Master. Live as children of light, for the fruit of the light consists in all goodness, righteousness, and truth. And find out what pleases the Master. Have nothing to do with the fruitless deeds of darkness, but rather expose them, which I am trying to do here, and I am trying to help people. For it is shameful even to mention what the disobedient do in secret. It's disgusting. A lot of it has been brought into the light recently. Like they want to show off their Satanism. Like at the Olympic Games last year. And the opening of CERN. And the sick Balenciaga scandal. And the recent Gucci scandal. For it is shameful even to mention what the disobedient do in secret, but everything exposed by the light becomes visible. For it is light that makes everything visible. Baal and Asherah, a showdown at Mount Carmel. 1 Kings 18:16-21. So Abadiah went to meet Ahab and told him, and Ahab went to meet Eliyahu. When he saw Eliyahu, he said to him, "Is that you, you troubler of Yasharal? I have not made trouble for Yasharal." Eliyahu replied, "But you and your father's family have. You have abandoned Yahuwah's commands and have followed the BALE'S. Now summon the people from all over Yasharal to meet me on Mount Carmel, and bring the 450 prophets of Baal and the 400 prophets of Asherah who eat at Jezebel's table." So Ahab sent word throughout all Yasharal and assembled the prophets on Mount Carmel. Eliyahu went before the people and said, "How long will you waver between two opinions? If Yahuwah is Elohim, follow him. But if Baal is Elohim, follow him." And the next section, sorry guys, my mouth hurts really bad. But this is the last section that I believe that there's quite a few sections that refer to the truth about Christmas and pagan beliefs. But the next section, okay, is wreaths, ornaments, etc. So I'm going to try to finish reading this, and hopefully my camera doesn't shut me off before I can finish. But if it shuts me off, I love you all, warriors of Yahuwah and warriors of the truth. And please continue to watch my channel. Please like, subscribe, and share. Comment if you like. And if you like my content, I will be adding a new one or two every day. Okay. The round wreath symbolize the sun, and at the same time the womb, both thought of as symbols of fertility to pagans. The sun was male, but his symbol was that of the female. The vertical tree was decorated with male symbols of fertility, testes or balls. Yet was the image of the female, connecting the heavens to the earth. This consort of Baal was worshipped as Asherah, Astarte, Artemis, Athena, Isis, Gaia, Nana, Ostron, Ostra, Istre, Easter, Aphrodite, Eostre, Ashtoreth, Ishtar, Diana, Ninurta, Cress, Nut, Venus like my razors and like the planet, Indrani, Devaki, Tanit, and others. This tree was named ASHERAH in the Hebrew scriptures, and her worship continued as we see recorded in the books of Acts chapter 19. She is still worshipped today by Wiccans and other Earth Mother cults. The vernal equinox pointed to the impregnation of this Earth Mother, and the winter solstice pointed to the birth of BAAL, the sun, showing the human gestation cycle of 9 months. To the pagan, the cycle of yearly observances had great influence over them. Their festivities were all about fortune, fertility, and sex. Paul's words above describe them well. The round ornaments represented the testes or testicles, as mentioned, and have also come to be known as witch balls. Fertility symbols abound in nature worship. Throwing rice at weddings in ancient cultures represents semen. It would be interesting to see what a theologian might use as an excuse for all of this. I wonder. Most of them excuse things as being sanctified now. Yirmiyahu was a professor to the northern tribes known as the House of Yasharal. They had fallen into idolatry with the worship of Asherah. So as you read the following, realize that Yahuah was warning the tribes in Samaria about a specific thing they were doing. Jeremiah or Yirmiyahu 10, 1-5. Hear what Yahuah says to you, O house of Yasharal. This is what Yahuah says. Do not learn the ways of the nations or be terrified by the signs in the skies, though the nations are terrified by them. For the customs of the people are worthless. They cut a tree out of the forest, and a craftsman shapes it with his chisel. They adorn it with silver and gold. They fasten it with a hammer and nails, so it will not totter. Like a scarecrow in a melon patch, their idols cannot speak. They must be carried because they cannot walk. Do not fear them. They can do no harm, nor can they do any good. Isabel taught them about Asherah. Deuteronomy 12, 29-32. Yahuah your Elohim will cut off before you the nations you are about to invade and dispossess. But when you have driven them out and settled in their land, and after they have been destroyed before you, be careful not to be ensnared by inquiring about their Elohim, saying, how do these nations serve their Elohim? We will do the same. You must not worship Yahuah your Elohim in their way, not in man's way. Because in worshiping their Elohim, they do all kinds of detestable things that Yahuah hates. They even burn their sons and daughters in the fires as sacrifices to their Elohim. Disgusting. Deuteronomy 16, 21-22. Do not set up any wooden Asherah pole beside the altar you build to Yahuah your Elohim, and do not erect a sacred stone, for these Yahuah your Elohim hates. Asherah poles are a deal breaker with Yahuah. Learn not the ways of the heathen, and do not bring a detestable thing into your home. Deuteronomy 7:26. Do not bring a detestable thing into your house, or you, like it, will be set apart for destruction. Utterly abhor and detest it, for it is set apart for destruction. Okay, next time I will be reading The Initiated Know the Secrets, which will talk a little bit about Saturn and Hanukkah, and then another section on an awakening after 2,730 years. And then I will be reading Cry of the Nazarene on the Hill of Ephraim, and Yahusha's Yoke, the parable of the sower. And if I can get further, I will read The Seed is the Word, the Truth of Yahuah. And this video I should have out for tomorrow. I hope everyone has a blessed day. Yahuah bless you all. Yahuah bless your families. Thank you so much, Lou, for writing this book. This book is amazing. All of your books are amazing. And thank you, Matt, for the gifts. All praises to the Most High Yah, and bless you all, warriors of Yahuah and warriors of the truth. We love you. All right.